Before this episode starts, I just want to let you all know that for about like 5 minutes in the start of this, I was using the wrong mic, so the quality is going to be a little worse for like the first 5 minutes, but it gets fixed pretty quickly. Okay.
Welcome to Allee's Anime Club. Hi.
Hello.
I'm being joined by Chris and our guest today, Oriansenshi.
Hello.
By the way, Chris, I can't hear you on Discord if you're talking.
Nope, just patiently waiting.
Oh, okay. I was hoping you would say hi when I said your name.
You know, in this case, I wasn't spacing out. I was spacing out, but not on anything in particular. Hi, I'm Chris. I was just staring at lighting up icons.
So this is a new podcast that we're doing. And we're going to be talking about different anime. We're going to be watching sort of book club style. We'll have sort of a number of episodes of something that we need to watch, and then we'll watch it, and then we'll talk about it. And we're not going to do any sort of like recaps or anything. We're just going to jump right into it. So, this time we watched the first 6 episodes of Dungeon Meshi.
And I'm going to let you know, I went into this completely blind and knew absolutely nothing about it. Didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, it's been very popular on Tumblr.
Oh.
Even before the anime came out, people were very into it on Tumblr. Somewhat because Ryoko Kui, the mangaka, was posting like drawing memes and stuff with the characters, and would post a lot of like, oh, here's the characters in like a modern setting.
Ooh.
And like, yeah, she did a lot of art like that, and people really found it like charming.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Senshi is this generation's Martha Stewart. Or Emerald.
Oh, goodness gravy.
Bam! There's a dated reference.
Yup.
I mean, Emerald's before my time anyway, so whatever.
I grew up watching Emerald Legacy.
I think there were reruns on. He might have been on. I don't know.
Yeah, it was. So it's interesting with watching this anime for me at this point in time was a really interesting experience because I have very recently moved into a new apartment and I don't have a microwave. So I have to cook everything. Like anytime I want something to eat, I have to get the pans out, cook on the stove, cook on the using the oven, all of that jazz. So I'm just doing a lot more cooking. Whereas like for the last few years, I've always just thrown stuff in the microwave a lot of times. So it was definitely an experience. And also, this is kind of funny, but I was talking with some of my viewers on my stream about stuff, and we got a little bit before I started watching these episodes, and I went off on a tangent talking about like the fact that I am I'm vegan and I enjoy cooking this meat substitute called seitan, which is based on gluten. And I told my chat, and they thought it was hilarious, that when I first went vegan, I had this dream of opening my own restaurant and being a chef, making all kinds of like vegan meat substitute like dishes and stuff. And I wanted to call the place Gluten Palace, but one of my chat was like, you should call it Glutinous Maximus. But so having all that cooking stuff on the brain, it was definitely interesting to go into this show.
For the vegan thing, I was vegan for a few years, so I get that. There's a man, you have to get into cooking. It's a requirement for doing that.
Oh yeah, I've I'm not, but I do have some dietary restrictions, and even just with those, it's really hard to find things like even just being lactose intolerant. Like,
Yeah, that's my life.
there's so much stuff that just has dairy in it.
So there was this meme, this running gag in the vegan community for years about how milk products are added into everything, and someone did like a comic of someone shopping at the grocery store. They pick up a cucumber and they're like, oh, they roll it over to the side and it says contains milk ingredients and a sticker on the side of the cucumber. And they just get this face of like, why?
All right. So we went off on a little bit of a tangent there.
Sorry, we just were talking about when we started.
I wouldn't say it's too bad. The whole show is about cooking, and they eat things. They eat a lot of things.
They eat a lot of things. I forgot to actually like rewatch the episodes before this, so I don't remember where, because I'm caught up on the anime. Because I started watching it a long time before we started this. So I don't remember where episode 6 leaves off.
Episode 6 is the one where they eat the mimic, where Chilchuck it was the Chilchuck episode.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Where you find out how old Chilchuck is.
Uh-huh.
So that's where that ended off in the whole thing, where he was very prideful and didn't want to open up and didn't want to ask for help and didn't want to trust his team.
Right.
And though it was kind of horrific when they were like holding him down and taking his thieves' tools and using it to pick out the meat from the mimic.
He's like, no, please.
I'm wondering if I missed something now.
No?
No, I watched this, but I'm sitting here like, I don't remember a mimic. I just remember the suits of armor, and I remember them eating coins that ate them, and
Oh, yeah.
or tried to eat them.
The treasure bugs.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that part with the treasure bugs, whatever. Like they throw the bag of real treasure over the edge, and because of what Senshi said, they think these are bugs, but they're just not safe to eat. And then he's like, "Yeah, you'll chip your teeth on real coins and real gems," and they're like, "Wait, what?"
This man does not care about treasure. He's in it for the food.
Oh, absolutely. Because he's been living down here the whole time. Why does he need money?
Anything he needs, he barters for with the vegetables he grows on the golems.
Exactly.
Yep. Speaking of which, that golem, yeah, the man's growing friggin' food on golems, and when that whole scene showed up, I was like, that is absolutely genius. Why have I never seen this before anywhere else? Because it makes like, don't get me wrong, Golem's dangerous, obviously, but he's completely right when he gives out his logic. He's like, oh, well, they keep away pests, they stay moist, they get tons of extra like fresh material in them, and it's just like everything about him.
Yeah.
Like, this is like the perfect little ecosystem walking around on two legs, and no one's ever thought
Yeah.
to chain one of these guys up or something and just grow vegetables on them before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They protect themselves from like people who might want to steal the food. And
Self-watering.
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, and that gave me some, like, I had some thoughts about that, because it was like they keep, as they're delving in and they're going through all of this stuff, they're making all these discoveries or showing all of these things that they've learned, and there's part of me that's just like wondering about the world building, like what it would do to the world if the stuff that they discovered was like more widely known, right? Like,
The magic armor thing?
Right.
yes, like the magic armor thing, like the Senshi's multicultural holy water.
Oh my god, I love that. Oh my god, that was another one of those moments where it's just, why has no one done this before? This is so much
Yeah.
smarter than just throwing the water on people. I was like,
Yeah,
this-
exactly.
This is genius.
Yeah. And
Using it like a mace.
and then the whole thing with the golems, because like Marcel mentioned that, with the time and effort she could make golems if she wanted to, right?
Right.
And I was kind of hoping that would lead to some kind of like a bonding moment, because like the kind of tension between Senshi and Marcel in these episodes, and Senshi mentioned that there used to be 10 golems, now there's only 7. No, sorry, now there's only 3. They lost 7. 7 minus 10 is 3. Sorry, brain math. And there was part of me that was kind of hoping that at some point down the line, maybe in order to like rebuild and revitalize part of the dungeon, maybe they could do a side quest thing of gathering the materials and Marcel doing the ritual to make 7 more golems, so it brings it back up to the 10, so it's not just the 3 struggling around. And Senshi could grow more vegetables, and that could really help the ecosystem. And just I think it'd be really cool if that became a thing where, like, in the wider world, mages started like growing their vegetables for their mage towers or their wizarding schools. They grow their vegetables on the backs of golems.
I think that would yeah, that would also be good training just for anyone who's trying to do any sort of fighting or magic practice. But yeah, no, I think it's just that her character is pretty much just there to be the one that's super reluctant to try any of this because, bug food, monster food, food that is made from or fertilized with human waste, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would have been nice to see that expanded on. I mean, maybe they do. We don't know. I didn't read like the manga or haven't seen the rest of the episodes. I mean, it could happen, or it might just be one of those things where you're left wondering.
Yeah.
By the way, did you know that Laos, since Laos named his sword Kensuke, Ken means sword, and Ske is just kind of like a thing at the end of a name. Like,
so he named his sword
common...
Swordy?
Yeah, he basically he basically named his sword Swordbert.
It's fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
It's very in character. I just want to say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he is. He is. He is such a lovable goof.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of there's been a lot of like stuff about how he's very like autistic coded. And how he's actually like very good autistic representation.
I don't know enough about autism or things related to it to have any sort of judgment on that.
Mostly because like his personality tends to put a lot of people off, but like he's never like in the text he's never like directly demonized for it. Like that's just his personality. And you know it also has its upsides, and his friends like him just fine, and I don't know. This is all just stuff that I've I've heard. But I like that.
Though, talking about Laios and the whole thing with his sword. One of the things that kind of like bugged me a little bit was that he didn't like. I get why from a storytelling perspective because it's funnier, but like he didn't tell anyone that he brought a monster sword with him. And it gave me kind of the vibes of like that one person who doesn't tell the rest of the group in the zombie apocalypse that they got bitten.
Yeah.
It does kind of have that feeling to it.
It does end up coming up later.
I mean, how could it not? He's already
Yeah.
slipped a few times.
Though in episode 2, you know, there's like the ending monologue or whatever at the end of each episode, right? And this is kind of an aside. I don't want to go too deep into it, but the ending monologue in the dub was like, bread cannot replace meat. Meat cannot replace bread. I laughed at that because I cook seitan, which is a meat substitute made from wheat. So I just laughed at that. I'm
Yeah.
like, my bread is my meat.
Yeah. A fun fact about those ending monologues, they're actually taken straight from the manga.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Basically like every chapter would end with like a narrator sort of lesson at the end. So that's pretty cool. And like reading the manga, it's just like the anime is just super faithful to the manga. And I don't feel like you see that all the time. Like a lot of times they'll take a lot of creative liberties with it. But the anime is like super 1-to-1, which is great. And by the way, this is done by Studio Trigger, which you can absolutely tell in the animation.
Kill guys, right?
Yeah. If you're familiar with any of Trigger's other work, you can definitely tell that this is Trigger.
Yeah. Though there was one thing that I don't know if bugs me is the right way to phrase it, but just kind of like put me off a little bit. In uh in episode 4, it talks about the racial tensions between between the whole thing with the elves and humans and dwarfs against the orcs, and it talks about a lot of stuff with like these tensions between them, and you meet the orc village, and like I didn't know where they were going with that, right? And it talks like it felt, I don't know if out of place is the right word, because like so much of the other stuff was just like, we're in the dungeon and we're making food out of monsters, and then it's just like big world building thing that has major implications to the rest of the world.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it didn't really. Honestly, I'd completely forgotten about that by the time the orcs did show up. I had just sort of. I guess it's there as sort of just something they can pull upon, and you go, oh, yeah, they did mention that at the beginning or something. That way, if they need some air quotes, they need some sort of antagonistic event or something, then they can just be like, oh, orcs.
Right. The orcs do play a bigger part later in the series. But also there's some more world building like that, and it kind of gets drip fed in the beginning, and then it becomes a lot more important like way later on. From what I know of the manga. I'm not caught up on the manga yet, but
is the manga completed or ongoing?
I think it might be currently on hiatus.
Ah, okay.
It is either on hiatus or complete.
Okay.
Because Ryoko Kui's not currently releasing new stuff. She did post a bit about how she was playing Baldur's Gate 3.
That's where the development time went.
Yeah. She also posted some fan art of Baldur's Gate 3, which was cool to see. But yeah, I honestly, the world building is probably my favorite part of Dungeon Meshi. Just because like it goes into so much detail, and like it makes so much sense. Like, yeah, this would happen if like this was a real thing, and if monsters were real, they would probably there would probably be some people who ate them, and some people who were most people would be have some kind of stigma against eating them.
Well, I mean, it's that whole Pokemon thing where,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, well, all the plants and animals in the world practically are living, so we got to
Right.
eat something.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know because I've seen clips and stuff since since watching these episodes. So I know that at some point later on down the line, they meet other parties, and I've seen some clips of other parties reacting to them eating monsters, and it is absolutely hilarious to me to see how like other parties are just like, why are you eating a brick?
Right.
That's a diamond. but oh man, I mean, I'm super into monsters just in general. Always have been ever since I was a little kid. My favorite little kid stories were like a bunch of like monsters abduct the kid and take him out to a barbecue where he has eyeball subs and stuff on a beach with like some vampires and werewolves and such. But
Yeah.
this I don't know. I like seeing the exploration of common monsters and looking into more about them other than what they're mean and they kill people. What do you want to know? Go away.
Right.
So because we see like there were little bits of information in there that I thought were really neat, like the armor being or not asexual. What's they're both.
Hermaphrodite.
That's it. So they any of them can and they produce by eggs, and then they mentioned the coins having different sexes where like, and the one would have a female head on this side of it that looked like a coin, and the other one was a guy's head, and I was like, well, that's just neat. I like that.
Yeah.
That's little bits of detail there is super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that's like I said, my favorite part. Just like the little things that just make me, as someone who enjoys world building just as a hobby, I'm like, oh, this this is this is my people.
If I were living in a world that had monsters in it, I know one of two things. One, I'm not what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't have enough I wouldn't be diligent enough to become like a warrior or a mage or anything like that. But I probably would become some sort of zoologist for monsters.
Oh yeah.
I would want to learn about monsters.
Yeah.
That-
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was done.
Oh, okay. One thing that like is interesting that I kind of picked up on, but I don't know if I'm misunderstanding it. But from the references I got from the episode, it was something about the monsters being created by the effects of the Mad Mage, and the monsters coming from the dungeon that was the Golden Castle. And the Kingdom Underground. So like monsters aren't a normal thing that walk around the world. They only exist within the dungeon, which creates this interesting ecosystem where it's like you've got your normal everyday world above ground, but then as soon as you go below ground to the dungeon, oh boy.
Yeah, and it's I like that it's implied that like dungeons are a regular part of the world, but this specific dungeon is like different, and presumably all dungeons are unique in like their backstory and whatnot. But I just like how like Marcel and Fallon. I don't know if this was in, but there's the flashback where Marcel and Fallon are in school together. Did you?
I don't remember that.
Okay. That's later, but they basically imply that like there are dungeons all over the place, and there's like the one that the show focuses on is not the only dungeon.
I'm feeling like that. I don't remember if this whole thing. I don't remember if this was brought up at the beginning of the anime, but somewhere over the course of it, I think the orcs were talking about it. I was like, where they're saying, "Oh, are you trying to become the new king of the dungeon or something like that?" And they're talking to the guy with the sword, whose name I forget, and he just kind of goes, I don't know what I'd do," and I'm sitting here like, this man loves to eat monsters and wants to try to eat every monster. I'm pretty sure this man would be devastated if all these monsters disappear. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like there's a little bit of like foreshadowing or hinting or something in there, that sort of thing. And I like that little address thing because he is the guy that seems most interested in doing that. Like Shinji or the dwarf guy, if that's his name, I can't remember. is definitely
Senshi.
Senshi, that's it. He's just about eating them. He's just making a
Yeah.
living, having a good time. But sword guy here, he loves them. He doesn't
Yeah.
just want to eat all of them. He wants to know everything about them.
Right.
I like a little bit of like proper foreshadowing, even if it wasn't subtle in the slightest. But having it there at all is nice.
Yeah.
Right.
One interesting thing in about like foreshadowing and like setting stuff up in episode 5 when like you have the perspective change where you're following a more air quotes normal party, and it's like I feel like the story is like hyping them up to be this like very powerful or capable party, saying they're one of the few big parties that are left around, and they're getting all their supplies, getting all their stuff together, and then it's like all this build up, and then they die off screen
Yeah.
Yep.
to bugs.
Yeah.
I remember them build that beginning of that where they were building them up. I'm like, all right, so these are new guys. Are they gonna be enemies? Are they gonna somehow interfere with the main group? Are they gonna join the main group? And then like you said, they just die off screen. I'm like, oh. So
That
it can happen to anybody at any time.
so slight spoilers. That becomes a running joke with that party specifically. They keep dying and like Laos and crew keep running across their bodies and being like, "Oh, do you recognize these guys?" No.
It's just a bunch of nobodies, whatever.
Yeah, and then they just keep taking their stuff and like leaving them for the people to like come resurrect them.
Which
Must be pretty frustrating for them.
Yeah.
though it's also that brings up this interesting concept of like living in a world where resurrection magic is a thing.
Right.
Um
There's actually later there is an explanation that people can only be resurrected in the dungeon. Like if they die in the dungeon, then their souls are kind of bound to their bodies.
I'd be living in the dungeon then. Fuck it.
Yeah. And they can be resurrected, but it like on the surface, I think it's either like impossible to resurrect people or it can only be done very quickly after they've died. Because the soul leaves the body.
Oh, okay. Which that would mean that like if you wanted to like live a long life and do like intense study and research and the kind of stuff that you could only do over a ridiculously long life with the guarantee that like someone could revive you, you'd want to live in the dungeon somewhere.
Yeah. Well, like we also see in the first episode, there are people just kind of like set up on the first floor of the dungeon,
Right.
Just kind of living there.
Yeah, it's a good place to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
having shops and stuff.
Not a bunch
Yeah.
of crazy monsters, just a couple, basic dudes, slimes.
Which
Slimes, walking mushrooms.
also, speaking of the walking mushrooms, the whole thing when Laios is like cutting apart the mushroom and is like, oh, if we cut them this way, we can cut them apart easier. If we cut them that way, they're harder to cut. So that'll make killing the walking mushrooms much easier. And I'm like, oh, should probably share that with people. But that also brings up with the whole thing what Senshi said when he was talking about his stuff a couple floors down. When he said that like him being there allowed him to clean up the toilets which made it easier for people to go around on that floor. And that fertilizer he used to grow the vegetables that he traded to other traders that would then have food and supplies that people could trade for as they went further down into the dungeon. And when he talked about the golems, he said because of the golems occupying this floor, the other monsters, the stronger monsters, stay further down, and that if no one revived the golems, the stronger monsters would move up, scare other monsters up, and the entire thing would move up, and the entire ecosystem on the first floor, where it's like, oh, these are just all weak monsters, that would just completely end.
Right.
Yeah.
And seeing how their entire society just hinges on Senshi constantly reviving these golems, even though it's technically illegal.
Need to get some more Senshis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me it's just really great attention to world building. Mm-hmm. And just I wonder if other dungeons have people like that, just taking care of the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be interesting to see other dungeons and the other dungeon equivalents of Senshi. There could be an entire SenshiCon. Whole convention of all the Senshis swapping monster recipes.
I would honestly love to run an RPG set in the Dungeon Meshi world. I think that would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Or just write fan fiction that doesn't focus on the main cast and just focuses on a completely different dungeon somewhere with completely different characters, but uses the same mechanics of the world and everything.
I think it'd be very interesting to explore the world, to explore the other dungeons, and to think up some other recipes and stuff that you could have a character making. I don't know. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'd definitely be interested in more anime like this.
Uh-huh. Well, would you be interested in watching more Dungeon Meshi and talking about it next time? Or would you want to switch to a different anime?
I think I'd like to finish this one up. I mean, there's not a whole lot. How much of it's? Well, at least there are 6 episodes, yeah.
It's still ongoing, but we would be getting to the end of the first arc.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay. Yeah. So, how's everybody feel about Dungeon Meshi? I guess good.
Yeah, pretty good.
I really like it.
Yeah, I liked it. The one last thing, we kind of touched on this with the living armor, right?
Yeah.
So when they talked about the living armor being kind of like clams and stuff, and I'm like, I Googled it, and the clams and stuff make their own shells, right? So that implies that these creatures are making the armor that they inhabit as their shells. And the concept that these creatures, I thought it was very interesting that these creatures know enough about the human form to make armor that looks like human armor and and operates like human armor, where the head is what's needed to detect an enemy,
Right.
Was I don't know, I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Probably some sort of evolved thing.
Yeah.
Mm. But
yeah, it's very cool.
Mm.
Anyway, we're running out of time.
Okay.
Yeah. Does anybody want to plug anything? You could plug your Twitch. Orion.
Sure. I stream on both YouTube and Twitch. My name on both of them is Oriansenshi, Oriansenshi. I stream on Mondays and Fridays starting at 8:30 p.m. EST. I am a variety streamer. I do a lot of different types of content. I do gaming content. I do TTRPG content. I do writing. I do different types of rules exploration and reviews of different games and some game development stuff. Right now, I'm working on a novel that I've been doing some writing streams as I've been writing chapters in a novel I'm working on, and that has been really fun. And it's also led to me doing longer streams because I've been trying to do longer chapters. But that is what I currently have going on.
All right. And that'll be linked in the description.
Yep. Y'all can find me wherever if you can.
Catch me if you can. Yeah, and y'all already know what I do because this is on my channel. So all right. So yeah, next time the second part of Dungeon Meshi.
All right.
See you there.